I never expected marriage would test my self-respect so severely. As a contractor who married into a higher social circle, I thought Julia and I had overcome our background differences. The subtle jabs from her wealthy friends at dinner parties were uncomfortable, but I brushed them off. What truly broke me was watching my wife laugh along when they said I was beneath her. The disrespect grew bolder, until I finally had enough. Before I continue this painful story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you have ever felt disrespected in a relationship. Trust me, what happened next changed everything. The first time I met Julia was during my senior year at State University. I was working part-time maintaining the campus grounds between classes to pay for my education. She quite literally ran into me while rushing to her business finance class, spilling coffee all over her expensive blouse and my worn uniform. Instead of getting upset like I expected from someone dressed so well, she laughed it off. That genuine smile caught me completely off guard. Julia Manning was the daughter of Thomas Manning, who owned one of the largest real estate development companies in the state. I was Cody Wilson, the son of a factory worker who taught me the value of honest labor. We exchanged numbers so I could pay for her dry cleaning, but ended up talking for hours that night at a local diner. Despite our obvious differences, we clicked over our shared love of classic movies and hiking trails. Julia knew every Hitchcock film by heart, and I knew every mountain trail within 50 miles. Our first date was a sunrise hike to Eagle Point. I packed a simple breakfast in my backpack, and we watched the morning light spill across the valley below. When she tucked her hand into mine as we descended, I felt like the luckiest guy alive. Dating Julia was surreal. She introduced me to fine dining restaurants where the waitstaff knew her family name. I showed her hidden fishing spots my father had taught me about. We balanced each other perfectly, or so I thought at the time. Her parents were cordial but distant when we announced our engagement after a year of dating. Her mother, Elizabeth, gave a tight smile and said, "Well, this is certainly unexpected." Her father merely asked if I had considered joining his company, rather than pursuing my contracting business. They hosted an engagement party where I met their friends, all wealthy business owners and professionals who looked at me with barely concealed curiosity. Our wedding was modest, compared to what her family could afford. Julia insisted she wanted something intimate, rather than the society event her mother had envisioned. We compromised with a ceremony at her family church and a reception at a mid-range hotel. I noticed how her parents introduced me as Julia Manning, contractor husband, rather than simply by my name, but I was too happy to care. We moved into a small but comfortable apartment after the honeymoon. I continued building my contracting business while Julia took an entry-level marketing position at her father-friend company. She could have easily gotten a management role through family connections but wanted to prove herself. I admired that about her. About 2 months after the wedding, Julia invited her 3 closest friends over for dinner. These were her ride-or-die friends from private school and college: Amanda Townsend, a marketing executive at a luxury brand; Stephanie Banks, a corporate attorney; and Tiffany Reed, who managed her family charitable foundation, but mostly shopped and traveled on her trust fund. I spent the entire day preparing the apartment, cleaning obsessively, and cooking a roast chicken recipe my mother had taught me. I wanted to impress them, to show I was worthy of their friend. The evening started pleasantly enough. The women caught up on gossip while I served drinks and appetizers. But as the night progressed, I noticed how they kept talking about people and places I did not know, inside jokes I was not part of. When I tried to join the conversation, they would smile politely, then continue as if I had not spoken. "So Cody," Amanda said during dinner, swirling her wine glass, "Julia tells us you work in construction. I own a contracting business." I corrected gently. "We specialize in custom renovations and additions." "How fascinating," Tiffany replied with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "My father just had our summer house renovated. The contractor drove the most adorable little truck." I felt the sting but smiled through it. "Well, my truck is not so adorable, but it gets the job done." "And how is business?" Stephanie asked, her tone suggesting she expected to hear it was failing, growing steadily. "I just hired 2 more guys last month." "Oh, men with actual skills are so rare these days," Amanda commented, giving Julia a pointed look. Julia changed the subject quickly, and I told myself they were just protective of their friend. After they left, Julia hugged me and said, "See, that was not so bad. They just need to get to know you better." I believed her. I believed in us. So I kept trying with her friends, determined to win them over for Julia's sake. 3 months into our marriage, Amanda invited us to her housewarming party at her new luxury condo downtown. Walking in felt like entering a magazine spread, everything pristine and obviously expensive. I felt immediately out of place in my department store clothes. "You actually wore jeans," was the first thing Tiffany said when she saw me looking me up and down. "They are his nice jeans," Julia quickly added, squeezing my hand. "I guess contractor chic is a look," Amanda commented with a smirk. Throughout the evening, the comments kept coming. When I mentioned a recent project installing custom cabinetry for a downtown restaurant, Stephanie responded, "So you are basically a handyman. How quaint." During dinner, I overheard Stephanie ask Julia, "I still do not understand why you settled when you could have had Brian or Tyler. At least they were from our circle." Julia laughed uncomfortably instead of defending me. "Stop it. Cody is sweet. Sweet. Like a puppy or a child. Not like a husband deserving respect." The car ride home was silent. Finally, I said, "They really do not like me." Julia sighed. "You are being too sensitive. That is just how they talk. They were disrespecting me right in front of you, and you just laughed. What was I supposed to do? Make a scene? They are joking. That is how our friend group has always been." I let it go, but something had shifted. I began noticing how Julia acted differently around her friends versus when we were alone. With me, she was down to earth and loving. With them, she became someone else, more concerned with appearances and status. I started trying harder. I bought better clothes. I read financial news to have conversation topics. I learned about wine to avoid their smirks when I ordered the wrong type with dinner. But nothing seemed to bridge the gap. The holidays brought a dinner at Tiffany palatial house. Her family had old money, and everything from the artwork to the silverware screamed wealth. Throughout the evening, I tried joining conversations only to have my comments ignored or talked over. Julia kept shooting me, looks that said, "Behave as if I were the problem." On the way home, I brought it up again. "Your friends treat me like I am invisible. Or worse, like I am an embarrassment." Julia's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Can we not do this again? You are trying to make me choose between my husband and my oldest friends. I am not asking you to choose. I am asking you to stand up for me when they put me down. You are imagining things. Maybe if you made more of an effort to fit in. I have been making all the effort. They have made none." Julia's face hardened. "Is this your way of trying to isolate me from my friends? Because my sister warned me about men who do that. That night we slept with our backs to each other, and I began to doubt whether our love could overcome these differences. Still, I was committed to making our marriage work. 6 months into our marriage, we attended a charity gala that Tiffany Family Foundation was sponsoring. I rented a tuxedo and studied proper etiquette videos online to avoid embarrassing Julia. The venue was opulent, filled with the city elite in designer clothes and jewelry worth more than my annual income. While Julia was talking to a former professor, I stepped away to get drinks. As I approached, I overheard her friends clustered near the bar. "You deserve so much better than him," Julia, Stephanie was saying. "What were you thinking? He is so obviously out of your league," Tiffany added with that familiar smirk. "Everyone sees it." I froze, waiting for Julia to defend me. "He is really sweet, though," was all she said weakly. Amanda spotted me first, her eyes widening slightly. "Cody, we were just talking about you." "I heard," I replied, handing Julia her champagne. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and hollow conversation. Later that night in our apartment, I finally exploded. "How could you let them talk about me that way? They did not mean anything by it. They said I was beneath you, and you agreed. I did not agree. I just did not want to make a scene." "You never want to make a scene when it comes to defending me. But you are quick to correct me when I embarrass you." Julia's eyes flashed. Maybe if you stopped being so insecure and actually tried fitting in with my world, your world. So there is my world, and your world now, not our world. You know what I mean. You always take everything so personally. Your friends openly disrespect me, and you do nothing. How should I take that? The argument escalated until Julia slammed our bedroom door, locking me out. I slept on the couch that night, and the next, until it became a pattern. Over the next few weeks, distance grew between us. I took on extra jobs to avoid being home, working from dawn until late evening. Julia spent more time with her friends, coming home smelling of expensive restaurants and wine. One night, while Julia was showering, a text notification lit up her phone on the coffee table. It was from Amanda. "Have you considered what we talked about? You know, separation does not have to be permanent. Just enough time to clear your head and realize you have options." My stomach twisted into knots. In a last-ditch effort to save our marriage, I suggested couples counseling. Julia reluctantly agreed, but kept finding reasons to reschedule appointments. I began to feel like I was fighting for our marriage alone. Julia's 30th birthday arrived, and I was determined to make it special. I took the day off work to decorate our apartment with her favorite flowers, prepare her favorite meal, and bake her favorite cake from scratch. I wanted to remind her of what we had together, of the love that brought us together despite our differences. Her friends arrived early, criticizing everything from my balloon arrangement to my choice of wine. "You are cooking yourself rather than catering?" Tiffany asked, wrinkling her nose at the homemade appetizers I had prepared. Julia always loved my cooking. I answered, trying to keep my voice light. "Well, not everyone has the budget for proper catering," she replied with false sympathy. As more guests arrived, I became increasingly isolated. In my own home, I was treated like the help rather than the host. When I brought out drinks, Amanda loudly asked Julia, "How is married life with the handyman? Getting all your fixtures repaired promptly?" The group laughed, and Julia just smiled uncomfortably. After dinner, I stepped outside for air. Through the cracked window, I heard them talking in the kitchen where they thought I could not hear. "Be honest, Julia," Amanda was saying. "Are you happy with him?" "Really happy." There was a pause that stretched my heart to breaking. "Sometimes I do wonder if I made a mistake," Julia admitted quietly. "My parents always said I could do better." "It is not too late," Stephanie added. "You are still young, gorgeous, and your family has connections. You could easily reset." "I do not know," Julia sighed. "When we are alone, things are good. It is just that you have to hide him from everyone that matters." Tiffany finished. I stepped back from the window, my world shattering around me. The woman I loved was ashamed of me. I had become her secret regret. With a strange calm, I walked back into the apartment and straight to the kitchen, where they all went silent, their faces showing they knew I had heard. "Julia, can I speak with you privately?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. "We were just helping with the cake," she said nervously. "The cake I baked from scratch this morning. The same cake your friend Tiffany was just making disgusted faces about." The room went silent. "I have tried for months to fit into your world. I continued addressing everyone now. I have changed how I dress, how I talk, what I drink. I have endured constant disrespect from people who claim to care about your happiness. But I just realized something. If they truly cared about your happiness, they would respect your choice in a partner. And if you truly loved me, you would never let anyone treat me this way." Julia's face paled. "Cody, you do not understand." "I understand perfectly now. You are not proud to be with me. You are embarrassed. You think you settled." "That is not true. I heard you, Julia. Just now. And every time you stayed silent when your friends put me down, I heard that too." I looked around at the shocked faces of her friends. I deserve someone who respects me, who is proud to be with me, who defends me the way I would defend them. Julia's eyes filled with tears. "Please do not do this now. Not at my birthday party." "I am done worrying about appearances," I replied, already moving toward our bedroom. I pulled out a duffel bag and began packing essentials, while Julia followed, pleading with me to calm down and talk in the morning. Her friends clustered in the doorway, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of shock and what looked disturbingly like satisfaction. "Where are you going?" Julia cried as I zipped up the bag. "Somewhere I am wanted," I answered simply. "Somewhere I am respected." As I walked past her stunned friends toward the front door, I heard Stephanie whisper, "Let him go. He was never right for you anyway." That was the final confirmation I needed. I walked out the door despite Julia's tearful pleas to stay and talk things through. In that moment, I chose my self-respect over a love that had become poisoned by disrespect. The weeks after leaving were the hardest of my life. I stayed with my best friend Dave, temporarily sleeping on his couch while I looked for my own place. During the day, I threw myself into work, taking every job I could find. I avoided Julia calls and texts, which ranged from angry accusations to tearful apologies. "You are better off," Dave told me one night over beers. "You always seemed like you were walking on eggshells around her and those friends." I knew he was right, but letting go of someone you love is never easy, even when that love has been tainted. A month after moving out, I ran into Mark, Stephanie's husband, at a building supply store. Unlike the others, Mark had always been decent to me, though never warm. "Cody," he said, looking uncomfortable. "How are you holding up?" "Taking it day by day," I answered honestly. He glanced around as if worried about being overheard. "Look, there is something you should know. Those women, they were never going to accept you. I figured that out. No, you do not understand. It was not really about you. Amanda has been trying to get Julia a job at her company for years. Tiffany tried to set Julia up with her brother before you came along. They had their own agendas." This revelation hit me hard, and Stephanie Mark looked away. Stephanie and Julia competed for everything in college. She could not stand that Julia found real love, while He trailed off, but I understood. Their marriage was a business arrangement more than a love match. This conversation gave me a new perspective. The problem had never been that I was not good enough. The problem was that Julia allowed people with their own selfish motives to influence her feelings about our relationship. I focused on building my business and my self-esteem. I reconnected with old friends who valued me for who I was, not what social status I brought to the table. Slowly, I started healing. 2 months after our separation, Julia showed up at one of my job sites. She looked different, less polished, more like the girl I fell in love with in college. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice small. We sat in my truck, the tension thick between us. "I made a terrible mistake," she began. "I let people who I thought were my friends poison something beautiful." "Those people were never your friends," I replied. "They had their own reasons for wanting to break us up." Julia nodded, wiping away a tear. "I know that now. Amanda was trying to get me to quit and come work for her company, where she could take credit for my work. Tiffany wanted to set me up with her brother, whose family business was struggling. They never wanted me to be happy with you, and you believed them when they said I was not good enough." "No, I believed them when they made me doubt myself," she corrected. "They made me think I needed their approval to be happy. I was weak and insecure, and I hurt the one person who truly loved me for me." Her honesty surprised me. "What do you want, Julia?" "A chance to show you I have changed. I cut them all out of my life. I stood up to my parents about how they treated you. I even switched jobs to get away from the toxic environment." I sighed, conflicted. "I do not know if we can go back." "Not back," she said firmly. "Forward. As equals who respect each other." Julia and I agreed to start with coffee once a week, neutral territory, where we could talk honestly without pressure. She told me about her journey of self-reflection, how she had begun to see the pattern of allowing others to influence her self-worth. "I was always the Manning daughter, the one who had to maintain appearances," she explained. "I never stood up for myself. So how could I stand up for you?" I shared my own growth too, how I had come to value myself regardless of others' opinions. "I will never again be with someone who is ashamed of me," I told her firmly. "I was never ashamed of who you are," she replied. "I was ashamed of who I was not strong enough to be." We began counseling, setting firm boundaries and expectations. Julia proved her change was real when her father made a dismissive comment about my profession at dinner, and she immediately stood up. "Dad, Cody builds things that last with his hands and his heart. His work actually helps people, not just makes them money. I will not sit here while you disrespect the man I love." Her father was shocked into silence, and something shifted in how he looked at both of us after that. Slowly, we rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect and equality. We bought a modest house that we both loved, a symbol of our fresh start. 6 months after our separation, we hosted our first dinner party with a mixed group of friends, some from my circles and some new friends Julia had made at her new job. During dinner, one of her coworkers made a subtle comment about contractors versus professionals. Before I could even process it, Julia spoke up. "Actually, my husband runs a successful business that employs 12 people now. He creates beautiful spaces that families will make memories in for generations. I could not be prouder of the work he does and the man he is." The moment was small but significant. As I looked at my wife defending me with genuine pride in her eyes, I knew we had finally found our way to true partnership. It took nearly losing everything for us both to learn what really matters. Respect cannot be an afterthought in love. It must be the foundation. Walking away was the hardest thing I ever did, but it saved not just my self-worth, but ultimately our marriage too. True love is not about status, or background, or fitting into someone else's world. It is about creating a world together where both people feel valued exactly as they are. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose something to truly discover what it is worth. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in a relationship? Let me know in the comments below.